I heard her before I saw her. Heels clicking with militaristic precision, huffing up my gravel driveway like she was marching into battle. Her voice, shrill and sharp, cut through the morning like a siren wailing in the quiet countryside. In one hand she clutched a piece of paper, fluttering in the breeze like some official decree sent from the heavens. Or more accurately, from the petty little fiefdom she ruled with a clipboard and a glare. Karen. The self-appointed monarch of Meadowbrook Estates. Her face was as red as the barn I had just finished repainting. Not a metaphorical red. No, I mean the exact crimson shade of fresh barn paint, the kind that glistens in the sun like blood under moonlight. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she screeched, her voice piercing enough to set off a neighbor's dog into a howling frenzy. I didn't even flinch. I just sipped my coffee. Slow, deliberate, the way a man does when he knows the war is already over and he's just waiting for the losing general to realize it. "You've violated 17 HOA regulations," she barked. "This paint color is not on the approved palette. Barn red is strictly prohibited. You have 48 hours to repaint or face daily fines of $500. Her finger jabbed the air like it was the final word in a courtroom drama. I set my mug down on the porch railing, leaned slightly forward and smiled. "Karen," I said, "you're standing on my property right now." She blinked, confused. A hesitation. A crack in the armor. "In fact," I continued, "you've been trespassing on my land every single HOA meeting for the past 5 years. The way her mouth opened and closed reminded me of a goldfish tossed out of its bowl, panicked, breathless, bewildered. "This is the HOA common area entrance," she sputtered. I pulled out my phone and tapped open a file I'd saved months ago for this exact moment. I held it up. "This, right here, this entire strip, including the welcome sign, your fancy little gazebo, and that ugly cluster of mailboxes? All mine. Private property. Survey certified." I didn't expect her to faint, but the color drained from her face so fast I thought she might tip over. But to understand the glory of that moment, we've got to rewind a bit. Back to when I first moved into this peaceful corner of rural America with nothing but a dream, a toolbox, and the foolish idea that minding your own business was enough to keep the peace. A year earlier, I'd retired after 3 decades as a firefighter. Smoke, sirens, late-night alarms. I'd done my duty, saved lives, and earned every gray hair on my head. I wanted peace. So I found a stretch of land on the outskirts of Meadowbrook Estates, a picturesque little ranch with 20 acres of quiet and potential. The farmhouse was humble but solid, the barn was old but noble, and the whole place sat just on the edge of a manicured suburban development that looked like it had been plucked out of a glossy real estate brochure. My property, as it turned out, had been here long before the subdivision sprang up, predating the entire HOA by 4 decades. And that detail mattered. It meant I wasn't subject to their rules. No covenants, no bylaws, no Karen. Or so I thought. The previous owner, Earl, was a cantankerous old cowboy with a smirk like he knew secrets. Before handing me the deed, he said, "Keep your paperwork close, son. Those HOA folks are good at pretending they own the sun." I didn't think much of it at the time. My renovation started simple. Fixing up the porch, repainting the siding a nice sage green, installing solar panels. That's when it began. The first note appeared one morning, taped to my gate in neat cursive on monogram stationery. "Dear neighbor," it began, "while we appreciate your enthusiasm for home improvement, please be advised that sage green is not on the Meadowbrook Estates approved palette." I crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. I didn't answer. I figured silence would be louder than any argument. But Karen wasn't used to being ignored. The notes became weekly, then bi-weekly, then daily. One cited the unauthorized use of reflective solar materials. Another complained that my native plant garden, specifically the butterflies, were causing insect traffic into the subdivision. When I painted the barn red, that was the last straw for her. Not just because of the color, but because I chose it with her in mind. I knew it would drive her up a wall. And boy did it. That same day, I came back from the hardware store to find an official-looking envelope under my windshield wiper. Inside was a notice of violation listing 24 infractions, ranging from non-conforming architectural choices to unauthorized agricultural structures. None of which applied to me. But the threat of legal action was there in bold, underlined font. That's when I called Patricia Martinez. Patricia was a real estate attorney with eyes that saw through brick walls and a mind sharp enough to cut glass. In our first meeting, she leaned back in her chair, hands steepled, and said, "Let's find out who actually owns what." She combed through everything: land deeds, county records, easements, development plans. And after 3 weeks she called me with a chuckle. "You're going to love this," she said. Earl, the old cowboy, had pulled a fast one decades ago. When the subdivision developer carved out the plots, they missed a sliver of land, about half an acre, stuck between property lines. Earl had bought it quietly in 1982. And that little triangle? That was where the HOA had built their precious community entrance, gazebo, welcome sign, and mailbox station. "They built their whole front porch on your lawn," Patricia grinned. "And they've been trespassing for years. Armed with this nuclear-grade ammo, we sent the HOA a notice. Vacate the land or negotiate a lease." Karen, of course, did not take it well. She stormed to my house the next morning. No papers this time. Just fire and fury. "You can't do this. That's our land." "Nope," I replied. "It's mine. Bought and paid for. Surveyed. Deeded. Recorded." Her eyes narrowed into slits. "You think you're clever? We'll sue you into the ground." "I welcome it," I said. "Just remember, every day you delay is another day you're trespassing. And we're logging it." She walked off in a rage. That week was chaos, angry emails, neighborhood flyers warning of the rogue rancher, and even a desperate plea on the community Facebook group claiming I was threatening the safety and sanctity of the neighborhood. Then came the emergency HOA board meeting. They couldn't hold it in the gazebo, it was on my land, so they met in Karen's backyard. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, listening as their lawyer explained what Patricia already had. "The documents are clear," he said. "The land belongs to Mr. Reynolds." Panic set in. Residents demanded answers. How could this happen? Who approved the survey? Why had no one checked? Karen tried to spin it, called it a clerical error. Said they'd fight it in court. But the lawyer shook his head. "Adverse possession in this state requires 20 years. You've had it for 15. You're 5 years short." I took that moment to stroll up to the fence and offer my terms. "Lease it from me," I said. $5,000 a month. Plus 3 conditions. No HOA authority over my land, no complaints unless legal cause, and Karen is never allowed on my property again. Karen screamed extortion. Others called it a bargain. They deliberated for weeks. Karen tried to rally support, but her grip was slipping. Questions about HOA spending surfaced. Someone suggested a forensic audit. Suddenly, people were looking closer at the books. Turns out, Karen had been using HOA funds for community landscaping, which happened to be her backyard. Thousands over the years. All approved under suspicious line items. She was voted out, 63-12. Her employer, a bank, got wind of the investigation. They found she'd violated their ethics policy. She was fired. Then came the charges, $37,000 in misused HOA funds. 6 months later, I stood outside my newly painted turquoise barn as Karen stood in court. Found guilty on all counts. 18 months in state prison. Restitution. A $20,000 fine. She looked over her shoulder as the cuffs clicked shut. Rage, disbelief, a kind of broken pride behind those eyes. All because of a paint color. I took a sip of coffee and smiled. Turquoise, by the way, wasn't on their palette either.